The date was December 31st, 1914. The world was caught up in the greatest conflict it had yet known, and in the English Channel, a pre-dreadnought warship known as the HMS Formidable was conducting firing exercises off the southern coast of Portland, near Dorset, in the United Kingdom, along with the cruisers Topaz and Diamond of the 5th Battle Squadron. The Formidable was the flagship of the Formidable class, of which three were built: Formidable, Irresistible, and Implacable. Built between 1898 and brought into service in 1901, now obsolete after the launch of the HMS Dreadnought in 1906, but still, for the time, a powerful asset to the British Empire's fleet. On board were 780 men in the ship's dog, Bruce. Commanding the ship since September 2, 1914, was 40-year-old Captain Arthur Noel Locksley. Locksley had been with the military since 1888 when he was first assigned to the HMS Britannia for his naval training education. Locksley had his ship performing in naval exercises earlier in the day, and by the evening the exercises had concluded. Yet the group remained in the channel. This, however, was an ill-advised and ill-fated decision, as submarines had been reported in the area recently, and the low-light conditions would make spotting torpedoes and mines extremely difficult. The conditions had been progressively getting darker and colder as light faded over the horizon. The wind had begun to pick up into a strong force, causing waves to hammer the ship, the convoy, and the coastline. The conditions, it was believed, would reduce the chance for torpedo attack dramatically, as rough seas greatly reduce torpedo accuracy, and most submarines will rarely go above their periscope depths, and thus far less likely to launch an attack in such conditions. With the threat of attack being mostly placed on the back burner, the Formidable carried on at approximately 10 knots with the patrol of the channel along with its companion ships, roughly 20 miles off the star point, into the early hours of January 1st, 1915. A new year, and many men, hoping the insanity of the Great War would soon be behind them, are taking their watches, writing loved ones, resting, and talking amongst themselves about the events of today's exercises. At 0220, a loud explosion ripped through the Formidable as a torpedo fired by German U-boat U-24 slammed into her on the starboard side and detonated, nearly immediately causing a 20-degree list to starboard as water rushed into the ship. Locksley, knowing the ship was in mortal danger and having standing orders from the British Admiralty that, in the event submarines were to be spotted, return to port immediately, ordered the ship to make for Portland along with Topaz and Diamond. This course and damage control on board the Formidable carried on for a further 40 minutes until approximately 0305, when a second torpedo slammed into the stricken warship and detonated. Locksley, knowing the ship's fate was now sealed, ordered the crew into the lifeboats, and in accordance with maritime tradition of the captain going down with their ship, he and faithful Bruce took to the bridge, observing the evacuation and awaiting their fate. The Pinnacle, Launch, and 2 other lifeboats were filled with the remaining 269 sailors and launched. One of the boats, in the strong winds and battering waves, capsized and spilled the men aboard it into the water. Luckily, the Topaz and Diamond managed to pick up 80 of the men. The trawler Provident arrived on the scene and picked up a further 71 men from the sinking launch. A second Pinnacle was launched and took a further 70 men off the now rapidly sinking Formidable. This boat would go on to be missing for the next 22 hours, finally being spotted and brought ashore, with 48 of its occupants being saved. At 045, the Formidable finally lost the battle, rolling over and sinking into the channel, taking Captain Locksley, Bruce, and 546 of the crew along with her. The Formidable was the second Royal Navy ship to be sunk in the First World War. Bruce was later found washed ashore and would be buried in a marked grave at the Abbotsbury Gardens in Dorset. Today, the wreck lies upside down in the English Channel, where it has remained a war grave under the protection of the Military Remains Act for exactly 107 years on January 1st, 1915.